Hey everyone. This episode might be a little bit more heavy than you would think for the holiday season. But as I was listening to We the People, a book about the Constitution, and doing some other things in my life, it occurred to me that while they talk about critical thinking being a necessary part of everybody's life, part of how they view the world, very rarely do they talk about critical thinking being turned upon oneself. If you understand why you do the things that you do, why you react to things the way that you do, that can help shape your response, but at the same time, helps you know where you might have a blind spot or maybe something that's just triggering for you and give you the opportunity to make it less triggering or to recognize if somebody tries to use that to trigger you, that they're trying to do that. And it's literally critical thinking about the way you think, right? You're taking a look at the things that happen, for example, during the day, and your response to them to determine, do you see now that you're not in the situation, do you think that your response is appropriate now as it was when you made the decision to respond in that way? And I think that going forward, if you take the time to reflect upon what it is that you've done that day, what things you need to improve upon, what things weren't well, always give yourself credit for things that came out well. But at the same time, we all grow and improve. And what brought that to mind to me is the fact that they think the Constitution shouldn't grow and improve. It's some kind of stone tablet handed down by our founding fathers that was absolutely perfect, which of course it was not. And if you understand the history of it and all the compromises that had to be made to get that in place in the first place, and the things that needed to be made for slavery just to keep the southern states from not parting ways and destroying the country before it was even formed, then you don't understand history. As society changes and grows and learns from its mistakes, the Constitution should do the same thing. It should take the knowledge and wisdom that was gained and apply it to itself through constitutional amendments, Article 5 of the Constitution. But in order for it to function properly, it can't be set in stone. We can't look at things like Supreme Court's thought of, well, whatever the founding fathers thought at the time. Well, the founding fathers probably would have changed their minds by now with everything that's going on. You're treating a human being, especially the founding fathers, as if they were the epitome of knowledge and wisdom, that they weren't human, that they weren't fallible, that they wouldn't look around and go, things should be different now. For example, did you know that the women were trying to get equal footing back at the Constitution level when it was first written? That women were trying to be treated as equals to men way back then. People think about the Equal Rights Amendment. This goes well before that. And it didn't make it in. That all men are created equal meant all white men were created equal. That's not what the Constitution says, but that's how it was interpreted. Again, what was the intent? Who cares? What are the words? We the people doesn't seem to jive, in my mind, to all men are created equal. We started with people. Just continue it. All people are created equal. And there is no reason that that couldn't be the way things are. To get to there and to make things better means we change the Constitution so that the Supreme Court can't say, well, that's not in the Constitution. Well, yeah, it is. We actually put it in. We, the people, put it into the Constitution. But in order to get things in there that are framed properly and seen from the best light, requires us to understand ourselves as well. It requires us to critically think about what's going on in the world, but also why we have the opinions that we have, and are they valid? For example, at some point, people thought that owning another human being, for whatever reason, be it a debt or just buying them outright, was okay. It was never okay. But back then, that's the way they saw things, that a human being could own another human being. Men treated women like that. Love, honor, and obey. Seriously? Well, if you notice a little change there, it's because I had to bleep out myself. The thought that men and women aren't equal is just as ludicrous as thinking that men are equal. You know, people say, well, women do things differently than men. Men do different things from other men as well. But you're considering them equal. Why? Because of their gender? What is it in your thought that makes all men be equal, but women not be? What is in there that makes you think along those lines? I've surprised myself sometimes with thoughts that are just like, where did that come from? And it goes back a very long way to norms of the times when I was growing up. Now, my childhood experiences are going to be very different than everybody else's, as everybody's are, but I had a contributing factor to it because my parents were much older. My mother was 43, my father was 46 when I was born. So you're talking about somebody who's born in 1917 and 1920, spent their formative years growing up through the 30s and 40s and 50s, and bringing those kinds of things forward with them. Now, some of it is kind of interesting there, in that my father's mother was very racist. Her husband wasn't. Her son wasn't, but she was. But when you look at anything that you're thinking, where did that come from? Is it just a knee-jerk reaction to things because that's the way they were? Or is there an actual reasoning behind that? And when you take that critical thinking and apply it to yourself and how you do things, you can figure that out. Now, yes, I think critical thinking should be taught in schools, and I think that self-reflection should go along with it. I don't think you can do one without the other. Because when you do one without the other, your biases will impact what and how you critically think. Because it's going to color the input into your head as to what you're seeing before you. It's that filtering that's in there. For example, you go buy a new car, right? And you go buy a little red Ford, for example. And suddenly you see a lot of little red Fords on the road. Why? Because that's what you bought. And because you did, you've put a filter in place that's now filtering out the other cars, or could say on the other side of that, is rather than filtering the others out, it's sharpening your attention to those items because that's what you bought, or that's what you're interested in buying, or you really, really, really like muscle cars, so you notice all the muscle cars on the road, or you don't like Cybertrucks and you see those on the road because you're creating the conditions to highlight those to yourself. So if we were taught from a very young age to critically think and to turn that attention on ourselves, I think we'd be in a better place. I think it would mean that people accept responsibility for things that they've done, and at the same time do not blame themselves for things that they had no control over. That second one is a really tough one. I don't know anybody who can actually do that one. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't blame themselves for anything, but people who do blame themselves will blame themselves for things that they have no control over, or feel guilty about something that they had no control over. But in order to see that more clearly, you have to understand yourself. And when you think of the school systems, they're assembly lines. They're mirrored off of the old Ford assembly line, basically. I get a kid in here. There's all these things that I need to put into their head. So as we go from first grade to second grade to third grade, and from class to class to class, these are the parts that need to be inserted into what I'm constructing. And nowhere in there is critical thinking. Nowhere in there is thinking, for the most part. It's this is the story that you were going to be told in history class, and you are going to repeat it exactly as you were told, with the proper dates, times, and people. And I think that sets aside a huge part of what it means to have a functioning society. If I wanted something that could just quote facts back to me, I'd get an AI. ChatGPT could tell me everything about a particular book just by summarizing it, right? Don't need a person for that. What I need a person for is to think of the book in the first place. What I need a person for is to do the creative stuff. What I need a person for is to take in all that data and find all the flaws in what they were seeing and what they were hearing. Finding the hypocrisy of what's in front of them. So as we go into, for us in New England, the cold and dark part of the year, take some time to reflect upon, if not your day or your week, your month. Take a moment here and there to think, well, why did I say that? Why did I react that way? And see if you can start the path toward self-reflection, and then take that why did I and turn it outward and think critically about why did somebody act that way. I work for a large corporation that probably isn't very different than other corporations in that it's got less people than it probably needs in certain roles. And when you've got a company like that, it means that there are certain things that are going to be handled roughly. They either have to be handled quickly or you've overloaded the person. And remembering that helps you understand why things are taking a little bit longer than they normally do, or why that person may be a little more stressed than they normally are, and lets you see from another perspective. And then you can critically see where the flaw is. Well, the flaw isn't the person. It's not that he or she doesn't know what they're doing. The flaw is in the company that trimmed down so much to save funds that they've cut back too far. And that's a normal fluctuation that you'll see in most companies, that they fluctuate between having too many and having too few. Typically, from what I've seen in the companies I've worked for, it goes from too few to just about right, back to too few, and then to just about right for another day, and then too few again. Never an overabundance of people to do a task, but we've got just enough if nothing goes wrong, if nothing comes up, if nothing else needs to be handled, we've got the right number of people. But there's always something else that needs to be handled, and you always have to have the extra for that. And you see that when you can look at things critically and understand the situation that people are in. And I think it would help us to deal with each other and to deal better with people in our lives if we critically think about what's going on and critically take a look at ourselves and see what can and can't be improved. But that's what I got for you guys this week. I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you all next week.